house was buzzing with children's laughter and clinking cups, but Maya felt like a ghost in her own home. Balloons hung slightly lopsided over the dining table, and the cake, a hastily purchased vanilla sponge with the wrong name scrawled in blue icing, sat in the center like a spotlight on her failure. "Where are the candles?" someone muttered. Maya froze. She'd forgotten the candles again. Elijah, her wide-eyed son, was standing next to the cake, his excitement slowly dimming. He looked up at her, confused. "Mum? I'll get them. I think I have some in the drawer," she said, fumbling with shaking hands. Too late. Trent stood up, drink in hand, and raised his voice over the music. "You know what's funny?" he said, laughing, drawing the attention of a few parents nearby. "She had one job. One job. Can't even get a birthday cake right. I swear, God knows why I even married her." Laughter rippled around the room. Not loud, but enough. His sister Natalie snorted into her wineglass and said, "Classic Maya." Even Alina, their 15-year-old daughter, smirked and shook her head, arms crossed like she didn't know Maya at all. Maya's face flushed hot, but she said nothing. She pasted on a brittle smile, blinking rapidly as she bent down to pick up a paper plate that had fallen. Her hands trembled as she collected cups from the floor. Behind her, a whisper, soft, sharp, cut deeper than the laughter. "You know," said Mrs. Caldwell, Trent's mother, leaning toward Natalie. "The kids would be better off if she just disappeared." The words didn't need volume. They had weight. Maya didn't turn around. She simply stood there for a moment, letting the noise fade into a dull hum. Her eyes landed on Elijah, who was now blowing out imaginary candles while someone else lit a sparkler behind him. No one was looking for her. After the guests trickled out, the house was left in a scattered mess of wrapping paper, cake crumbs, and half-empty juice boxes. Trent disappeared into the living room, already halfway through another beer. Natalie was scrolling on her phone, her feet on the coffee table. Maya quietly walked into the kitchen. The sink was full, the counters sticky. She picked up a plate and began washing, her back turned to the world. No one thanked her. No one helped. No one noticed when a single tear slid down her cheek and dropped into the soapy water. The morning sun spilled through the kitchen window as Maya stood barefoot, flipping pancakes for a family that never said thank you. Her robe, once white and fluffy, now hung like a tattered flag of surrender. The house was silent except for the sizzling pan and the muffled sound of Alina's bedroom door slamming upstairs. 15 years ago, Maya had sat in a crowded lecture hall at the University of Missouri, her fingers flying across a laptop keyboard, passionately writing about injustice, about people who couldn't find their voices. She had dreams of becoming a journalist, of telling real stories that mattered. Then she met Trent, charming, confident, magnetic. "I'll support you," he'd said after Alina was born. "Just take a break from school. Be there for the baby. We'll figure the rest out later." Later never came. 1 year turned into 3, and when she'd brought up finishing her degree, Trent laughed and said, "Why? You've got everything you need here." At first, it didn't feel like a trap. Maya loved her children. She poured herself into motherhood, diapers, bottles, bedtime stories, first words. But slowly, something shifted. Trent began blaming her for his long hours and growing dissatisfaction. "If you contributed more, maybe we'd have a better life," he'd mutter, tossing bills onto the table. In public, he was golden, doting husband, proud father, always ready with a joke and a handshake. At home, he turned cold. Passive-aggressive turned to aggressive. Little criticisms became daily ritual. Maya's days blended into each other. School drop-offs, laundry, vacuuming, and endlessly preparing meals, only to hear, "This is what we're eating," from someone at the table. Alina used to sit on her hip and tug her curls. Now, the teenager barely looked at her. When Alina got suspended last month for bullying a classmate, Trent's reaction had been swift. "This is because of your mother," he told the principal. "No structure at home. I travel and she can't keep things under control." Maya had said nothing. She always said nothing. That afternoon, Natalie had come over with her usual condescending smile. As Maya folded laundry in the next room, she overheard Natalie on the phone. "Trent's losing it. And honestly, I can't blame him. Maya's just dead weight. They'd be better off without her." Maya had stared at the basket of socks in her lap until the colours blurred together. Even Elijah, her sweet boy who once clung to her legs and cried when she left the room, had started pulling away. When his friends were around, he barely acknowledged her. The only place Maya still felt like herself was in the quiet moments after everyone had gone to sleep. She'd curl up on the sofa with a weathered leather-bound journal and write, not for anyone else, just to remember who she was. Maybe I am the problem, she scribbled one night. Maybe they're right. It had been a long time since anyone looked at her like she mattered. She couldn't remember the last time Trent had touched her with love, or when Alina had said, "Thank you," or when Natalie hadn't rolled her eyes at everything she said. Maya moved like wallpaper, present, unnoticed, quietly fading into the background. She didn't have friends anymore. She didn't have time. No one invited her anywhere, and she didn't know who she'd call if something went wrong. Even her parenting, her one area of pride, was constantly attacked. If Elijah didn't finish homework, it was Maya's fault. If Alina snapped at someone, it was Maya's influence. She cleaned fingerprints off the walls, ironed uniforms, made lunches, remembered every doctor's appointment, managed the grocery budget. But to them, it was invisible. To them, she was invisible. And lately, she was starting to believe she deserved it. The dining table was unusually well set, candles lit, cloth napkins folded, even Trent's cologne lingering a little heavier in the air than usual. Maya had cooked his favorite, roast chicken with thyme and garlic, mashed potatoes, sautéed green beans. He hadn't asked her to. She just hoped maybe tonight would be different. Trent raised his glass halfway through the meal. "Let's toast," he said, his tone overly smooth. Maya blinked, startled. "To what?" He smiled. "To new beginnings." Natalie chuckled into her wine. Alina smirked. Elijah kept eating quietly, eyes on his plate. "I've made a decision," Trent continued, locking eyes with Maya. "You're going to a wellness retreat for 2 weeks, starting tomorrow." Maya froze, fork in hand. "What?" "It's already arranged. They focus on emotional reset, peace, mental clarity. I think it'll help you. Help all of us." Natalie chimed in, feigning concern. "You deserve a break, Maya. Maybe this'll help you get back on track." Maya's voice cracked. "You planned this without asking me." Trent set his fork down, slowly and deliberately. "Because if I asked, you'd resist. And I'm tired, Maya. You're ruining the energy in this house. The kids need peace. I need peace." Alina let out a breath like a burden was lifting. Elijah kept his head down, lips pressed tight. Maya looked at each of them, searching their faces for confusion, protest, anything. But no one met her eyes. "Why now?" she whispered. "Because I can't do this anymore," Trent replied bluntly. "This marriage, your moods, the constant failure. I've spoken to professionals. It's time." The rest of dinner passed in silence. Maya didn't eat another bite. She sat through the meal like a statue, heart pounding in her ears. Later that night, the house quieted down. Alina slammed her bedroom door. Natalie left with a fake kiss on Maya's cheek. Trent settled in front of the TV, Elijah already in bed. Maya walked into their bedroom. The suitcase was sitting on the edge of the bed, packed, zipped. She hesitated, then slowly unzipped it. Her hand brushed past neatly folded clothes, a toiletry bag, slippers, then something stiff, an envelope. She opened it. Inside was a typed letter, addressed to Lucas D. Harrington, Esquire. It was from Trent. It read, "Maya Caldwell will be out of the home for a minimum of 14 days, during which we can proceed with filing the initial custody document. As discussed, we will be requesting full custody based on emotional instability and lack of parental structure." The rest blurred. Her hands trembled, but she folded the paper back perfectly, as if she'd never seen it. She didn't cry. Not this time. Something inside her shifted, not shattered, but hardened. She sat on the bed for a long moment, then stood, walked to the closet, and pulled out her journal from the back of the shelf. No clothes, no purse, just that. At 2:07 a.m., when the house was completely still, Maya slipped on her sneakers, opened the front door and stepped out into the night. No note, no noise, just silence and freedom. The morning after Maya left, Trent woke up to a cold side of the bed. No smell of breakfast, no sound of dishes clinking or a kettle boiling. He glanced at the clock, 7:42 a.m. He waited, assuming she'd overslept. By 8:15, he checked her closet. Most things were still there, but her journal was gone. He called her phone, straight to voicemail. "She's gone," he muttered. Natalie came over later that afternoon, already in drama mode. She just left, without saying a word. Typical. Selfish till the end. He nodded grimly, though something in him stirred, a feeling he couldn't name. They crafted a story quickly. "She had a breakdown," Trent told the kids. "She needed to go. She just abandoned you, Natalie whispered to Alina. Can you believe that? Maya, meanwhile, stood at the threshold of Joy's home in Atlanta, an overnight bag on her shoulder and the journal clutched tightly in one hand. Joy opened the door with a knowing smile. Took you long enough. The hug lasted longer than it should have. Maya didn't realize how touch-starved she was. The first night, she cried in Joy's guest room, cried for everything she'd endured, everything she'd become, and everything she'd lost. But by morning, she showered, put on clean jeans, opened her laptop. Joy helped her dust off her old writing sample, and together they built a modest portfolio. She pitched herself as a freelance copywriter to a small lifestyle magazine in town. They offered her part-time work within a week. She started therapy. Twice a week, she sat across from a soft-spoken woman named Dr. Renee, who asked her questions Maya had spent years ignoring. What do you want, Maya? Maya didn't know, but she liked being asked. Back in Charleston, Trent tried to maintain appearances. At first he managed. He made Elijah peanut butter sandwiches. Alina Ubered to school. But 2 weeks in, the illusion cracked. Elijah started refusing to go to school. He cried at night, clung to his mother's old scarf, and flinched every time Trent raised his voice. Alina got caught vaping in the bathroom again. This time, she wasn't just suspended, she was publicly shamed by a teacher, and her attitude worsened. Bills piled up. The house grew messy. The fridge often empty. Still, Trent spun the tale. She abandoned us, he said at church. Some women just aren't cut out to be mothers, Natalie posted on Facebook. The comments flooded in. Poor kids. Poor Trent. What a shame. But beneath the noise, a few people hesitated. A teacher at Elijah's school sent an email. He's not doing well. We'd love to speak with his mother, if possible. Maya saw the message. She'd secretly made sure the school kept her email on file, but she didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, she poured her pain into words. Late at night, when the house was quiet and Joy had gone to bed, Maya wrote, "Letters from a mother who left." She started anonymously, an online blog with no photos, no names. The first entry went live on a Thursday. They said I was useless, so I left, but I didn't disappear. I healed it spread like wildfire. The second entry got picked up by a parenting forum. By the fourth post, she had 200,000 readers. Women from everywhere wrote to her, shared their own stories of silent pain, of being erased, of breaking free. Maya didn't respond to comments. She just wrote, entry after entry. Piece by piece, she rebuilt herself on the page. One night, Elijah found her old blog bookmarked on their shared iPad, the one he wasn't supposed to be using. He didn't tell anyone, but he read it and wept. He printed one post and tucked it into his backpack. He started asking about her, quietly, whispering her name before bed. Trent got angry. She left us. Stop talking about her. But Elijah didn't stop. One afternoon, during a particularly rough drop-off, Elijah looked up at his father and said, "I want to live with Mom." Trent's face twisted. "She doesn't want you." But Elijah didn't believe him anymore, because he'd read the letters, because Maya's voice, the real one, was stronger than the lies. And in that quiet, unseen way, the power was already shifting. The courtroom was cold, sterile, but Maya walked in with a quiet fire beneath her skin. She wore a simple navy dress. No dramatic makeup, no dramatic gestures, just stillness, just strength. Trent sat across from her, looking smug in his tailored blazer. His lawyer whispered something to him. He smirked. Maya didn't blink. The judge entered. "We're here to determine the custody arrangements for Alina Caldwell, 15, and Elijah Caldwell, 10. Mr. Caldwell, your petition claims abandonment and mental instability." Trent stood. "Yes, Your Honor." Maya disappeared for weeks. "She has a history of emotional unpredictability. I've been the sole caregiver. The children need stability." Maya's lawyer rose. "We have documentation to respond, Your Honor." The judge nodded. Maya took the stand. She opened a folder, calm hands, steady breath, and began to present. Letters from her therapist outlining 6 months of consistent sessions. Journal entries detailing years of gaslighting, insults, isolation. Screenshots. Text messages from Trent like, "No one would miss you if you vanished," and "You ruin everything." Social media posts from Natalie, smearing Maya publicly. A letter from Elijah's teacher about his emotional distress after Maya's disappearance. A statement from Joy, who hosted Maya during her healing period. Then Maya pulled out one last document, a printed blog post. She looked directly at the judge. "I want to read something I wrote. It went viral. Maybe you've seen it. I never intended it for court, but I think the truth belongs here." She read slowly, every word cutting clean and clear. "They called me useless, but I was the one holding everyone together. I packed the lunches, signed the forms, cleaned the vomit, stayed up with the nightmares. I took the blame when my daughter bullied others, because I must have failed her. I bore the silence, the eye roll, the whispered critiques. They said I was nothing, but I was everything that kept that house from crumbling." Her voice didn't shake. Trent couldn't contain himself. He shot up. "She's manipulative. She's always playing victim. This is performance. She's selfish. She left." The judge's gavel struck. "Mr. Caldwell, sit down." Trent fumed, his lawyer tugging his sleeve. He sat, red-faced and trembling. The judge called for a recess and ordered private interviews with the children. 15 minutes later, a court officer walked Maya to a side room. Elijah was inside, small in the wide leather chair. He looked up, saw her, and his eyes filled instantly. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't stop them. I didn't know what to do. I just want you back." She gathered him in her arms, breathing in the scent of his hair. "I never left you, baby. I just needed to find myself so I could be your mum again." Later, Alina entered the same room. For a long moment, she stood in the doorway. Then, "You weren't perfect, but you didn't deserve what we did. I was just copying Dad. Everyone made it seem okay." Maya's heart cracked, then healed, all in the same breath. When court resumed, the judge's voice was firm. "I've heard the evidence. I've spoken to the children. This is not a case of maternal instability. This is a case of prolonged emotional abuse." He turned to Trent. "Your behaviour in this courtroom only confirmed what's been presented. Custody will be shared. Mr. Caldwell, you are required to enroll in anger management and parenting classes immediately. Any breach will result in custody modification." Maya stood tall as the gavel came down. Outside the courthouse, reporters buzzed, already whispering about the anonymous blog that had rocked suburban feeds. Trent stormed past her. "You think you've won?" Maya didn't respond. She looked past him, at the future. A month later, she signed a lease on a modest but warm apartment 2 miles from the children's school. There were yellow curtains, a second-hand bookshelf, and a big corkboard where she pinned her dreams. She didn't go back to Trent's house, didn't ask for alimony, didn't return calls from Natalie, didn't accept apologies from his mother, who had the audacity to suggest they start fresh. Maya built something new, for herself, for her children, and she never looked back. The weekends started quiet. Elijah would arrive first, dragging his overnight bag, hugging Maya with the kind of fierceness only a 10-year-old could carry. He clung to her like a lifeline, and she let him. There was no rush to talk, just cartoons, warm pancakes, and long cuddles on the couch. He slept better now. No more nightmares. No more hiding under the blankets when Trent shouted in the next room. Maya could feel the heaviness lifting from him, piece by piece. Alina was harder. She came reluctantly, sitting with her arms folded, scrolling through her phone, eyes darting. Maya didn't press. She simply sat beside her, silent, sipping tea. The breakthrough came one rainy Saturday. They were caught under a small cafe awning, both holding ice cream cones, a long-forgotten tradition. Maya glanced at her daughter, half expecting the usual eye roll, but Alina whispered, "I used to tell my friends you were annoying, but you were just trying. I was just mean." Maya didn't cry, she nodded. "You were hurting. I get it." That was the beginning. They didn't become best friends overnight, but the ice thawed, slowly, and every week, Alina stayed a little longer. Back home, Maya's blog continued to grow. The email came on a quiet Tuesday. A small publishing house wanted to turn her anonymous writings into a book. They loved the rawness, the honesty, the voice of a woman who had been erased, and chose to write herself back into existence. She titled it The Useless Mother. The irony wasn't lost on her. It was the name Natalie had thrown at her in a drunken brunch rant Maya hadn't even attended. Now it sat in bold font on the front of a national bestseller. She was interviewed on podcasts, invited to women's groups, asked to mentor others, not just mothers, but women who'd been gaslit into silence, women clawing their way out of emotional traps, unsure if anyone would believe them. Maya became a beacon, not by being loud, but by being real. Meanwhile, Trent's carefully built image crumbled. One of his clients stumbled upon Maya's blog and connected the dots. Word spread. Whispers began. The company didn't make a public statement. They never do. But a memo went around a week later. Trent Caldwell has resigned. Natalie's Instagram turned private. Mrs. Caldwell stopped calling. Just like that, the storm passed. Maya never danced in their downfall. That wasn't her victory. Her triumph came in quieter moments. Helping Elijah with a school project, laughing at a terrible joke Alina made in the kitchen, seeing her name on a bookstore shelf, or simply waking up and realizing she didn't dread the day anymore. One morning, as golden light spilled across the small apartment, Maya stepped onto her balcony with a mug of steaming coffee. Birds chirped somewhere nearby. The city hummed. She opened her laptop, typed the title of a new chapter, Rebuilding After the Silence, and she smiled. The apartment was quiet, bathed in the golden hush of early morning. Maya padded into the kitchen, still in her robe, ready to pour her first cup of coffee. That's when she saw it, a folded piece of paper tucked under her favorite mug. Elijah's handwriting, messy and uneven, scrawled across the front. For Mum. She picked it up slowly, unfolding it with trembling fingers. Dear Mum, I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you. I was scared. But now I'm proud of you. You're not useless. You're strong. I want to be strong too. I love you. Elijah. The letter slipped slightly in her hands as the tears came, silent and steady. Not the kind of tears she used to cry, the ones soaked in pain and confusion. These were tears of release, of recognition, of healing. She pressed the paper to her heart, letting herself feel every word. Not just hear them, feel them. Walking to the mirror by the hallway, she looked at herself, really looked. Not the tired eyes, not the lines that had deepened. She saw the woman who stayed, then left, then rebuilt, and finally, she saw herself, the real Maya. A small smile formed as she took a deep breath. She turned, crossed the room, and stepped into her writing space, a sunlit corner with stacks of books, a corkboard cluttered with quotes and ideas, and a single framed photo of her children. She sat down at her desk, opened her laptop, and placed Elijah's letter beside it. Then, without hesitation, she began to type. Not a blog post, not a chapter, but a new beginning. Hi besties, thank you so much for watching to the end. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe.